FBI raid on an alleged illegal gambling operation in Wilder.
America, what happened in Wilder, Idaho this Sunday is a perfect example of how illegal immigration and organized crime go hand in hand. The FBI raided what they called an illegal gambling operation at a horse arena. But what they found was a massive network of illegal immigrants being exploited by criminal organizations. But here's the part that's going to make your blood boil. Within hours, hundreds of jobless protesters showed up demanding answers, and we hear from the property owner's father. He's speaking through a translator despite owning a property in America for years.
Of law enforcement agents, including the FBI, ICE, state, and local law enforcement, gathered for a massive operation here in Wilder.
What is up, guys? Tyson Dela Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. This story perfectly illustrates everything that I've been telling you guys about illegal immigration, creates networks of criminal activity that exploit vulnerable people while liberal activists rush to defend the criminals. Let me break down what really happened in Wilder, Idaho on Sunday, because the mainstream media is trying to spin this as just some gambling bust. This was a coordinated operation involving nearly 200 federal, state, and local law enforcement officers. You don't bring that kind of firepower for a single poker game.
And we begin the news at 10 with developing news out of Wilder, where nearly 200 federal, state, and local law enforcement officers carried out a federal search warrant at La Catedral Horse Arena.
The operation targeted La Catedral Horse Arena, owned by Ivan Tellis, who got hit with criminal charges for running an illegal gambling business. But here's what they're not telling you. This wasn't just about gambling. This was an 18-month investigation that uncovered a sophisticated criminal network using apps like Venmo, Zelle, and Cash App to process thousands of dollars of illegal bets.
Court documents show Samuel Bejarano regularly posted about the gambling operation on Facebook, including a June 25th post showing a betting sheet filled with names and large wagers.
These criminals were so brazen they were advertising their illegal gambling operation on Facebook. In late August, an undercover agent witnessed betting couriers with backpacks full of cash. This is organized crime, not some casual weekend gambling. More than 50 people were detained during this operation, and here's the key detail. People who could show you documentation were, get this, released, while those who couldn't were sent to Boise or Mountain Home for further processing. This tells you everything you need to know about who's really at these horse races. Now, let me tell you about the detention process, because this is where the story really emerges. Federal agents set up large-scale screening areas where they can process people who were zip-tied and handcuffed.
And about an hour into the raid, everyone besides those who were detained got sent out of the arena.
The process was as simple as key lime pie. If you had proper documentations, you were released. If you didn't, you were sent away for further processing. One woman who was detained described being fully zip-tied until her wrists couldn't move, having to put all her belongings in a clear pouch, but she was released after showing documentation. Speaking of people being exploited by criminal networks, let me tell you about something that's been exploiting American retirees for decades. Outdated retirement strategies that haven't changed since the 1970s. While we're watching these criminal operations get exposed in Idaho, most Americans don't realize their own retirement accounts are being set up to fail. Businesses like BlackRock and Vanguard keep getting richer while your IRA, 401k, or TSP struggles to keep pace with rising expenses. But here's what they don't want you to know. The wealthy use completely different strategies to protect their portfolios. Strategies these same companies use for themselves but don't share it with their clients. My friends at Augusta Precious Metals have put together a powerful 2-minute report that reveals the one step you could take to break free from the outdated default strategies and take control of your financial future. If you have over $50,000 in retirement savings, you need to see this. Text the word TYSON to 35052 or click the link in the description down below to get instant access to this free report. Don't let your retirement become another victim of a rigid system. Text TYSON at 35052 right now.
I saw some people were chained and loaded into vans by agents. I also saw kids reunited with their their families and police drones searching for people in a nearby cornfield.
Think about that. People were so afraid of being caught, they literally ran into cornfields to hide. I said it before and I'll say it over and over again. If you're here legally and just attending a horse race, why are you running from police? The community meeting that night revealed something even more disturbing. Detainees were reportedly being offered $1,000 to self-deport. This is a clear indication that many of these people knew that they were here illegally and were looking for a way out. Here's what really gets me about this whole situation. Within hours of this raid, hundreds of protesters showed up to Cladwell demanding answers. Now let me ask you something. How do hundreds and hundreds of people with nothing better to do just magically appear for a protest on a Monday afternoon?
The community was definitely packed here a couple of hours ago. I know it looks empty behind me now, but that was not the scene. There was at least more than 100 people here. They were all sad, crying, yelling.
But here's my question. If this was just a legitimate horse racing event with legal attendees, why are people so upset about law enforcement doing their job?
They were zip-tying children. Zip-tying children here in Idaho. Ooh. Zip-tying children and holding them. Their parents were looking for them.
The protesters were claiming that children were being zip-tied. We've seen this before, and held, and calling it literal kidnapping. But let's be real about what happened. You bring children to an illegal gambling operation run by criminal organizations, and those children can't be immediately identified or their legal status verified. Law enforcement has to secure the scene. The fact that these protesters organized so quickly and has such coordinated messaging tells me this wasn't a spontaneous community response. This was an organized effort to create sympathy for people who were caught at a criminal operation. Now let's talk about the interview with Ivan Tellis's father, Andreas Tellis, who owns the property. This interview perfectly illustrates the problem with our immigration system and how people can live in America for years without assimilating.
I spoke exclusively with his father, Andres Tellez Juarez, who also owns the property. He walked me through his home, showing where federal officers forced their way in.
This man owns a property in America. His son was running a business here, but he needs a translator to do an interview. He's been here long enough to acquire property and establish a business, but he hasn't bothered to learn English well enough to speak to reporters.
Espero que toda la gente me apoye en este sistema. Pienso que las personas que ingresaron aquí abusaron mucho de su fuerza.
Tellez says what was supposed to be a relaxing Sunday horse race with families enjoying the event took a sudden turn when law enforcement moved in and chaos broke out.
Gente adulta que viene a divertirse, a estresarse un poquito de la semana de trabajo.
Through the translation, he's claiming that people just came here to quote unquote have fun and distress from the work week. But federal investigators spent 18 months building a case that shows you this was an organized illegal gambling operation processing thousands of dollars through digital payment apps. He's also complaining about the abuse of force and claiming that 70 and 80-year-old women were handcuffed with their hands turning purple. But here's the thing. When you're running a criminal operation and people can't produce documentation, law enforcement has to secure the scene for everyone's safety. What happened in Wilder isn't an isolated incident. It's part of a pattern we're seeing across the country where illegal immigration networks create opportunities for organized crime to flourish.
Today's raid, led by the FBI, is the result of an investigation that has been building for months. According to a federal criminal complaint, it all started in February when agents got a tip about illegal gambling tied to horse races at the arena.
This 18-month investigation revealed a sophisticated operation that was openly advertising on social media, processing large amounts of money through digital apps, and operating with impunity in a small Idaho community. The fact that it took federal intervention to shut this down tells you that local authorities either couldn't or wouldn't handle it.
This is not just, this is racist. This is against people who don't have to go through this. This is our country. This is my country. Mexico is not even my country.
The protesters are claiming this raid was racist and the people didn't have to go through this. But enforcing immigration law isn't racist. It is the law. And when you're at an illegal gambling operation and can't produce documentation, you absolutely do have to go through the legal process. One protester said, "This is my country," while defending people who were here illegally. That's backwards thinking that destroys our immigration process. The idea that wanting people to follow the law is somehow discriminatory. Here's something the mainstream media barely covered. There were also counter-protesters who showed up supporting the raid and demanding that immigration law be enforced.
Around 10 counter-protesters showed up about 20 minutes after the rally started. Counter-protesters were playing recordings of President Trump speaking, and in the middle of the ACLU press conference, the counter-protesters started playing loud music, including songs like YMCA. They say they want anyone who is undocumented to be out of the United States.
They understand something that the liberal protesters don't, that we need to get back to where our country started, with laws that are actually enforced.
Do you feel like what happened in Wilder yesterday was necessary?
Oh, absolutely. They're trying to get rid of these people that are coming in and
The fact that tensions escalated between two groups shows you the divide in this country. People who want our laws enforced versus people who think immigration law is optional. 3 Caldwell police officers had to show up to keep the peace when both sides started facing off against each other. The 4 people arrested in this case, Ivan Tellis and 3 others, are facing serious federal charges and appeared in court.
And according to ACLU, people who showed documentation were released. People who could not show documentation on site were sent to Boise or Mountain Home for further processing.
The ACLU is now providing legal assistance to families affected by this raid, which tells you everything you need to know about who was really at this event. If these were all legal residents attending a legitimate horse race, why would you need ACLU lawyers? This wasn't a case of mistaken identity or racial profiling. This was targeted enforcement based on an 18-month investigation. America, what happened in Wilder, Idaho is exactly what we need to see more of across the country. Federal law enforcement conducting thorough investigation, building solid cases, then executing coordinated operations to shut down criminal networks. The fact that this illegal gambling operation was also a hub for people who couldn't produce documentation shows these criminal enterprises exploit vulnerable populations. When you don't enforce immigration law, you create opportunities for organized crime to flourish. The protesters who showed up within hours claiming this was racist or kidnapping are missing the point entirely. This was law enforcement doing their job after an 18-month investigation. If you're here legally and not involved in criminal activity, you have nothing to worry about. The father who owns the property in America but needs a translator to do interviews represents everything wrong with our immigration system. You can live here for years, own a business, acquire property, but never bother to learn English or fully assimilate to American society. The counter-protesters who support this raid understand something that liberal activists don't, that laws exist for a reason and they need to be enforced equally. When we stop enforcing immigration law, we get situations like Wilder, where criminal operations can flourish in small American communities. The adults are back in charge, and it's about dang time. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.